I
Yeah.
gotta do it to him. I gotta do it to him. Welcome, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, man, to Unconfused Football Edition. And your boy, I had to put on the jersey on. I had to do it to him, man.
I get
Of
it, buddy.
course.
I get it, buddy. The rubber match is in the playoffs.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm telling you like this, man. I think we're gonna play a third time. Like you just said, the playoffs are coming.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised in that first round. We get Ravens Steelers round 3. Don't be surprised, brother. How you feeling, brother?
Yeah. I'm doing all right, man. But yeah, no, that was some harsh tokes yesterday watching that game. But yeah, well, it's really
Mhm.
hard, really, really hard to sweep, especially among rivals. It's really hard to sweep any one team. And quite often, yeah, the rubber match often is in the playoffs, especially with these two teams. My hope, of course, as a Steelers fan, is that they prevail. You know, they'll and they get sort of their bye. But I just assume that Baltimore will crush in the first round against either the Chargers or Denver, somebody. I hope. Texans,
Mhm.
probably Texans. Actually, I think the Texans is who they'd probably get if they don't win the division outright. But
Right.
if that's the case, right? I mean, most likely, yeah, Steelers Baltimore would be the second round, and it'll be epic. Oh Jesus, that would be epic.
Man, it would be absolutely
Yeah,
amazing. And by the
because
way, people.
yesterday, like the
Yeah.
Steelers were there, right? The Steelers were
Oh,
playing
they
ball with
were in the game.
them,
They were in the game. They were in the game. It
right?
was not a blowout. The score does not indicate the game. It
Yeah,
was maybe
you took
one move here, one move there that could have changed the trajectory of
You
the
you
whole
took the words out of my mouth, man. I was about to say the
thing.
scoreboard doesn't indicate how close that game was, but there was that
Yeah.
sequence, that wild set of plays to begin the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Craziest 3 minutes I've ever seen, bro.
Yeah, dude, like that's Steelers Ravens for you, right? That's why it's such an epic series and why it's such a great rivalry, right? So,
Man,
yeah, that
look
was
at
exhausting
Derrick
to
Henry.
watch as
It
and it's
was
just
so
exhausting to
interesting, bro.
watch as a Steelers fan, but like
Yeah.
what a football game.
I'm gonna talk my ish. I'm sorry, Unc. I gotta go into that.
Yeah,
I
go for it,
needed
buddy.
this. When my kicker finally makes his kicks, that's a Christmas present to me. And we're gonna talk about some Christmas ish stuff today, man. Let me tell you, finally my kicker actually does something and he's back. And the reason, and I'm so happy to see this, the reason we got this Hall of Fame running back was for games like that, was for
Yeah,
playoff games that are coming in the future. This is why you pick up the Hall of Fame running back. This is why I think the Eagles are going to go so far because they got a
yeah,
Hall of Fame running back. And that's why, I believe the NFL is cyclical. It goes in cycles, bruh. The
yeah,
run
man.
game is back. The running back is back. He runs for like some crazy 45-yard thing. And then Lamar throws an interception. And then next play, Russell throws and then a pick six. And Russ has
Yeah,
been playing amazing. And that's when the game flipped. Other than that, the game was
yeah.
tight. I believe the Steelers were going to score on that scramble by Russ before he
Oh
fumbled
yeah.
it. They were going to score. It was a
Well,
tight
didn't he
game. One to two plays.
fumble on the 4 yard line, right? Wasn't it like he
Yeah.
was driving,
Yeah.
right? But give Baltimore credit, right? They now had
Yeah.
to drive 96 yards for a TD,
Mm-hmm.
and they did
Mm-hmm.
it against
And
Pittsburgh. So
I'm
that
telling
was
you
a
right now,
championship. That was a championship play right there.
that's a fact. And let me tell you somebody who scares me the most because if this man is healthy for to come to playoffs, I think my Ravens or whoever team's in trouble. It
Yeah,
became
man.
so obvious how important Pickens
we're
was to that game.
we're really seeing just how much Pickens matters to this offense. Yeah. Yeah, like
Mm,
the Steelers are getting really tested right now. And I
yeah.
imagine that there was going to be like a bit of a regression that way. I mean, the Steelers to me didn't strike me as as a 13-4, 14-3 team, right? It just didn't make sense. But because
Mm,
remember we talked about that, like 11-6 was probably like the realistic marker for them with the season they were having, and even that's exceeded my expectations for the year. So we're gonna have to
mm,
see how it plays out. But yeah, man, like Henry, you noticed this time around. Remember the last time they played?
yes,
We said,
bro.
why didn't you run Henry more? And this time they did, and you see it, right? Like eventually, when you keep pounding the rock with a guy who can get you, like he averaged 6.8 yards a carry yesterday. So he was
Crazy.
chunking it. right? And
Mm-hmm.
the only way you get there is you just got to keep at it and at it and at it with the right running back, right? I mean, shit. Some
Yes,
guys
sir.
like, you give him 25 carries and he's getting 2 yards a carry. Like, of course, you're going to abandon that effort. But I'm saying when it's working
Mm.
and you're getting 4 or 5 yards a carry on average, you just got to keep smacking that line with that running back because he wears them down. And we saw that.
And I'm gonna tell you this, Ravens fans, Ravens flock in the chat, or anybody around. Obviously, like the stream. I know the Steelers people might be mad at us today, but we love them too. They are cousins. The
We've
thing
been
is,
there
what
before,
happened?
buddy. We've
Yes,
been there
sir.
before. We know it's not all over yet.
It ain't over yet. It ain't over till the fat lady sings and the
That's
AFC
it, buddy.
Championship is in the mix. I think it's gonna go to the very last game. I'll say like this: another thing for us Ravens that I liked, not too many penalties, bro.
Oh,
Because
that was
I
a
looked
really
at it.
clean game.
Very
That was
clean
some
game on both sides. I'll
both
say it like that.
both
Or maybe the
both
refs
teams had.
decided to keep it on the whistle. I'm happy we didn't get a lot of
Yeah,
penalties.
that
When it
was
didn't come down to a play, it was all left on the field of play. And that's the
yeah.
football to me. You know what I mean?
Both teams combined for less than 70 yards of penalties overall
Yes,
total.
sir.
I think Baltimore had like something like 30 yards in penalties on 3
Just
calls. Like
two.
remarkably clean game.
And you know what? When you have games like that, that's when you like that. Those are the type of football games I love.
Oh
Where it's
yeah.
not decided by the refs, you leave it in the field of play. That's why playoff football in the NFL is so good because the
Yeah.
refs, for the most part, they hold the whistle. They're
It just
letting the
gets
guys play to a certain part. You know what I
it
mean?
just gets so dramatic in that fourth quarter when they just keep the whistle in their
Yes.
pocket and the teams are not playing ticky tack ball, right? And then it's just when they just play and they just play, like the tension just builds and builds and builds. It's amazing.
And you know what? That felt like a playoff game. Didn't it feel like that
It
to you?
sure did. It sure did.
Let me tell
More
y'all
so,
something, man. We're giving
even
y'all
more
Christmas
so than
content.
the
Go ahead.
more so than the previous game. Like the previous game was
Mhm.
closer, but it
Yeah.
felt kind of like a regular season game. This one felt like there was something on the line. Yep.
Absolutely. And if y'all coming into the chat, new, old watchers, all watchers, you better like the stream, man. We're giving you the gift of this content
Yeah.
and giving y'all some game. I appreciate everybody already liked. Let's get the likes up. Let's have some fun today. And before we get to the other game that happened last night, man, we gotta talk. I'm gonna say it right now, man. Is Lamar in? Well, I don't think he's front running, but is he the front runner now for the MVP? And I'm not taking anything away from Josh Allen because I think Josh Allen's probably going to take it. But that performance, my guy, 3 touchdowns. Let
Yeah.
me get all the stats in front of me right now. We got 3 touchdowns, 207 yards, went 15 for 23. Of course, there was that one interception that was bad. But he also
Mm-hmm.
was on the ground for 9 carries, 22 yards. And he's having these performances. They keep stacking and stacking. 2 more games left. Could Lamar get that third MVP?
Yeah, sure he could. Sure he
Think
could. He's
so.
having an MVP season. We've
Right.
prorated it at different times throughout the season, and he's he's still
Mm.
on pace. He hasn't faltered.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, him and Josh Allen. It's gonna be really interesting. I don't think that's gonna be decided until the regular season wraps up because there are
Mm.
narratives in play right now that are going to require MVP type performances from both characters. And
Oh
we'll
yes.
see which of them responds.
And you know what's crazy, brother? It's just crazy to see that the next 2 games for these guys, actually 3 games for Josh Allen in the situation, are winnable games, but they're also losable because the
Yep.
Bills, they play the Patriots, the Pats, the bad team. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, they should
The
crush
Jets,
them today.
bad team, and then Patriots again. My thing is, this should be a clean sweep. So I believe it's all in Josh Allen's
Yeah.
hands or
So
legs to win this MVP. You know what
so
I mean?
he's closing out the season with back-to-back games against the Pats.
He has the Pats now today, then
Yeah.
Jets next week, and then Pats again to finish it off.
Wow.
This is a very easy schedule, bro.
Bill's got a favorable schedule to wrap it all up. Wow, man. That's
Yeah, right.
yeah.
And
Wow,
the
that's
Ravens have Houston and the Browns. Houston and the Browns.
Mhm.
So it's gonna be
Yeah.
It's gonna be to the
Wow,
bottom in a sense.
I just I just bookending your last three games with the Pats. Like, wow, something wild was gonna happen there, by the way, bro. Hey, listen, remember we were talking last week about that one analyst that said like, that the one indicator for Buffalo is like if they managed to make Detroit punt 3 times, that would be a sign that they might be winning the game. Detroit
Bingo.
punted exactly 3 times.
Oh, yes, and they lost.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
lost.
that theory was remarkably accurate.
But you know what? They don't punt much. They literally did that onside kick because they didn't want Josh Allen with the ball.
Yeah.
That's how good Josh Allen was this season. They did not want that offense with the ball because they knew what Josh was gonna do. And we gotta show some love to Josh Allen, man. This dude is not throwing turnovers. He just got engaged or married, not married, engaged, and he's been balling out of control. But is this
Huge
sustainable in the
win.
playoffs? I don't know. I'm gonna say
Huge
I'm scared.
win. Huge win against Detroit. That was massive.
Mhm. And I'll say the biggest win in my eyes, and it doesn't seem like it was, but I think it is because you're seeing a type of football that is a bend but don't break type of football, and that's clearly the Chiefs beating the Texans yesterday,
Yeah,
man.
man.
The
Yeah.
Chiefs beating the Texans, and now they are 14-1. This Chiefs team, I got it. I understood it now. They are a team. They won't score. They won't outshoot you.
Mm-hmm.
They won't stop you all game. But if you are in a one possession game with them in the fourth quarter, you're going to lose. They will outcoach you, out strategize you, and we might already be looking at the 3-time Super Bowl champs. What you think of that game?
Man, well, geez, I took a close look at that game, and I realized, looking at the numbers, because it didn't feel like it, watching the game. But the reality is that they had the lead going into halftime, and
Yeah.
they just played defense all through the second half. It was really kind of unexciting, in a way, because it was so predictable how it was going to go from there, right? It's like an anaconda, with its prey, just squeezing tighter and tighter and tighter until the fourth quarter's over. That's
Right.
what happened yesterday.
Right. And that's the thing about that's so annoying about the Chiefs. They're not going to put up 30 points. They're not going to put up 40. But guess what? They're not going to have you put up 30 points or 40.
Yeah,
So guess what?
they're
It's simple maths. They're
for
in one possession games and they stop you from getting them points.
for a team that is 14-1. They are the most vanilla looking football team. Fluky, just unspectacular in almost every regard. They're 14-1.
And that's the crazy thing about football is you can win in so many ways. You don't have to run up the score like Detroit. You can just make sure
Mm-hmm.
your opposition does. And by the way, quick pair up for our boy Tank Dell. Gruesome injury. Houston does
Yeah.
not look as strong as they were last year. I have some doubts, bro. I have some doubts. What are your thoughts about Houston before we get into it?
Well, Houston's been that enigma, right? We've been waiting for them. We've been saying it since about week 6. Like, when is the team that finished off the 2023 season going to show up? And they never really have. Even with the return of Nico Collins, we haven't seen them suddenly start scoring 38 points a game and all that type of thing. So I don't really know what to say about Houston except that they are behaving very much like an AFC South team, like they are, right? They're just another AFC. It's just another season of AFC South football, right? It's just not exciting or
Right.
spectacular. And I don't know what happened with Stroud and the boys down there. That offense should be revamped with the return of Nico Collins, but for some
Right.
reason they're not getting the air show yards that they did before. They're only scoring about 20 points a game.
And the sad part about it is that I think CJ Stroud, that sophomore slump, a lot of it is because of his O-line, man. Anytime he drops back to pass, he's getting
Probably.
harassed.
Yeah.
He's having such little time to throw. This team looks like they're about to be bounced in the first round because they don't look ready, man. And the
Yeah.
thing is, every team underneath them is so much worse in the AFC South. They're now at 9-6, but would you be
Yeah.
surprised if they finish the season like 10-7 or something like that. Not at
They
all.
they they
You know what I mean?
seem destined to be first round fodder. That's right. Even though as a division
Right.
winner, but yeah, they're probably going to have to go up against Baltimore, Steelers, Denver, or Chargers. Which one of those teams do you see Houston beating? I don't see them beating any of them.
Me neither, bro. And by the way, quick shout out to that Chargers Broncos game. Great, fantastic football. And I'm
Man,
like, damn, the Steelers, sorry, not the Steelers, the Chiefs better watch their back. You have two guys in that division who are really gonna push Andy Reid coming up. Those teams, and they're both young teams. They look good, man.
yeah,
They
man, the
look good.
return of the AFC West, man. Yeah, I love it.
Right. I'll say it like this, man. We've been having a lot of fun, but we want y'all to make some money, man. I know it's gonna be tough for this holiday season. We want to have some Santa, you know what I mean, come in with some cheer. Let's talk about our lines and spreads, Unc. We close to the end of it, brother. What are you looking
Yeah,
at? What
man.
games you got to circle there for our lines and spreads,
Well,
bro?
there's a couple of big spread games today. Like I think Buffalo's favored by 14, Green Bay's favored by 13 and a half or 14. I'm always
Mm,
like reluctant to really weigh in on huge spreads like that because just so many things can go wrong. But Buffalo
for
seems
sure.
pretty safe on it. But the games I've
Mm,
got circled are Jacksonville at Vegas. Vegas, for
okay.
some reason, is a 2 point favorite against anybody, 2.5 point favorite against anybody. But like it's Jacksonville, Vegas. This is an atrocious game, right? I'm definitely taking the under. It's 41 points, right? Um,
Yes, sir.
I'm taking the under on that. And I just like games like this that have no real appeal are the games that I kind of like. I throw my formula at it.
Mm.
There's my boy right there.
Shout
One
out
love,
Kareem,
Kareem. One
man.
love,
Young
Kareem.
KP.
I hope you're enjoying that nice, warm Florida weather because it is freezing up here.
I'm
But
jealous,
yeah,
bro.
Vegas.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, tell me about it, man. Tell me about it. But yeah, Vegas playing Jacksonville. When you stream the numbers on it, there's actually really only about a point difference between the two of them, and they've got a 2.5
Mm,
point spread. That means that Vegas would have to win by a solid field goal, and I just don't think they will. Even though Jacksonville's on the road, I think this game's going to be a mess. It'll be under, but I think in the end, Jacksonville prevails because Jacksonville has had a remarkable season for a terrible team. They're actually above
mhm,
500 against the spread. So, so,
mm.
like, so
Okay, interesting.
I'm gonna go with them.
Okay. The Mac
Now the other
Attack, Mac
one,
Jones. By
pardon
the way,
me.
one thing I want the Mac Attack, Mac Jones. I will say this: him and BTR, Brian Taylor, I think Jr.
Yeah,
BT
Brian
Taylor.
Taylor.
Yep, they have a very good tandem, and yes, I
He's
wouldn't be
matchup
surprised.
proof too, right? Like I've
Yes, he
watched that
is.
kid this year. He's been pretty matchup proof.
Oh, 100%. So I'm with Unc on all of that. Jacksonville should win this potentially horrible game. Or could be good. Who knows?
I can easily see it being like 18-16, but that's within 2.5 points, right? So
That's a fact. What else you
the
got, man? What are the games you looking at?
Well, the other one that's kind of interesting, again, it's an atypical matchup. It doesn't happen every season or even that often, but San Francisco is traveling to Miami for what
Mm.
should be a very pleasant afternoon. Weather will not be a factor in that game.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm just sort of my feeling again, both teams again, like terrible against the spread. There's no real indicator on that one, but I just
Mm.
kind of Miami's a home underdog against San Francisco, and I just
Oh
haven't
yeah, they
seen that.
are actually. You're right about
Yeah, and
that.
I just think that's a mismatch on that because San Francisco hasn't been that prolific on the road, and they haven't had they're 6-8 on the season. They haven't been reliable, so to rely on them to travel across the country and win the game outright by more than 2 points seems a bit of a tall task against a Miami team that has been playing reasonably well.
Right.
Over the last month.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, and of course, San Francisco's full of injuries right now. We've seen that team slowly get chipped away player by player all season long, and I expect more of that this weekend.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I feel you on that. Should be interesting.
And the under,
Niners, you take the under?
right? Both
Okay.
teams score about 20 points a game. So 44.5, would have to be a real outburst.
I definitely could see it going under as well. I'm leaning towards Miami. I don't know if they cover the spread, but Miami, they've been in some shootouts, but I don't think the Niners have that ability to shoot anybody out, man. Their offense
Yeah.
is so broken. By the way,
And
shout out Roberto in the chat. Got Chicago plus 6.5.
that's actually a good pick.
14.
Chicago plus 6.5 actually is a good pick because Detroit, quiet as it's kept, Detroit has been losing a bit of steam lately, especially on defense.
And finally, he has Rams 3.5. Yeah, man, good points, Roberto. Roberto, me and him been texting about our bets this week. So
yeah, I'd be careful about the New York pick though. Just in the sense that lately New York has shown a little bit more life now that all the pressure's off. We know for sure the season's over for New York. So of course now they're starting to play more relaxed. Right now that all the pressure's off New York, the way they came back last week to win that game was a bit surprising, and the amount of points they scored last week also surprised me. So with LA playing a 1:00 game, traveling across the country, I'm just not sure whether they're going to be on point. Especially their emotions have been high. They had a really great week last week, like we talked about. So I saw that point spread, and I was tempted to do New York Jets +3, except that would mean betting on the New York Jets. So I can't, right? I don't even want to touch that game, right? But just be careful with them.
So to stay away from you, like stay away from this one.
Yeah, dude. Well, and the other one,
I'll say it like this: if Devontae shows up like he did last week, I'm going with the Jets, man. And
that's what I'm saying, right? It's a home game, and it's
sugar high.
It's a home game, and it's the 1:00 window. Teams from the West Coast just traditionally haven't done fantastic. Traveling to the 1:00 window.
No pressure. There's more pressure on the Rams, really, because the Seahawks come through the back. So yes,
and it feels like 9:00 in the morning
here. I gotta disagree with Roberto. I might go Jets, bro.
Well, and also too because it feels like 10:00 in the morning for them too, right? Like you're playing at 1 in the afternoon in New York City, and it feels like you should be just having pregame warm up.
It's gonna be cold as hell too.
Yeah, that's right. So, I that's the only one of Roberto's picks that I would preach caution on. But I think he should be comfortable with the Buffalo game too, right? I'm pretty sure Buffalo romps today.
Buffalo, they're gonna go nuts.
Now, there's one other game that I thought was also mismatched, and I didn't think it was appropriate, which is ultimately what we're looking for here. When we're talking point spreads, right? We're trying to find imbalances in the market that might lead us to money. And another game that I hate even talking about it, right? It has no entertainment value whatsoever, except if you choose the right team, right? And that's the Giants going to Atlanta today, with the debut of Michael Penix, rookie quarterback. So who knows how that's going to go down. I have a feeling it's going to go well, but nevertheless, right? Rookie quarterback, fumbles, turnovers, little things like that. And the Giants, their points for, points against suggests that, like teams generally score about 8.5 points more against them than they themselves score. But Atlanta has a negative number of 3.5, which leads you to say that a point spread of 4 to 5 points at the most would be appropriate for Atlanta in this regard. Well, Atlanta's favored by almost 10 points, 9.5 points. So that to me seems like an imbalance and a mismatch. And so I would take the Giants in that game, surprisingly. They're both horrible against the spread. And I would, again, take the under, right? I don't know how many points are going to get scored in that game, but these two teams do not generally combine for 43 points in any game against anybody. Yeah.
You have to take the under, and that point spread is way too damn high.
I don't know what
they think Atlanta is. I agree with you, Unc. That is craziness.
Well, because that's 9
scoring, but not high.
9.5 means that it's got to be a solid 10 points, 1 touchdown and a field goal to cover that. And I'm not sure about that. The Giants surprised people last weekend by being more competitive than they lost solidly, but they were, I'm pretty sure they covered last week too. So I'm just saying that Tyrone Tracy's out of fumble hell, right? Like he's holding on to the ball better now, and they're just running the ball. And I can just see how this game might be like, 23-18, some god awful score, right? But boring, full of turnovers, who knows? But I just don't think it's going to get out of control by 2 solid scores in Atlanta's favor. So I think New York Jets are the Giants are the play today.
Okay. I'd personally go Atlanta, but I don't think Atlanta is going to cover that spread, man. It's way too high. It's going to be definitely it's going to be close game, but I don't think they can cover that.
Well, Atlanta's at home, and Michael Penix probably will, do some fun stuff today. We'll have to see whether he plays like a rookie and has rookie mistakes at one point or not, right? So that's the big wild card factor in that one. But I believe that Atlanta probably wins at home today, but not by anything like 9.5 points.
I will say this, man. Fantasy football, man. We're in the playoffs, y'all. We're in the playoffs, man.
Maybe you are.
We got it. I am. In both leagues. Gang. But we got to give out, though, since the holiday season, we got to give out some Coles and we got to give out some candy, man. Who are our guys? Maybe that we don't talk about much and deserve some Coles and some candies. Coles meaning guys who disappointed, who we thought would go off. And guys who did way better than they're getting some cold, and guys who we didn't expect to be this good, so they deserve some Christmas candy, some Christmas gifts. I'm going to start off with saying at a quarterback position, somebody who definitely deserves some calls, and I'm kind of surprised by this, is Geno Smith, man, because every week he's either giving us some amazing, a lot of yards, but he's not giving us the touchdowns. He's having picks. I'm giving him Christmas cold because I expected candy from Geno Smith at the quarterback position. And another one is Kirk Cousins, the man who just got benched. He started us giving us some candies. I got to give him some coals coming this Christmas season.
If he could just play Tampa Bay every weekend, he'd be league MVP.
Unfortunately, that's not how life works. I got to give him some coals. And so some candy. Some candy. I'm going to get this guy we haven't talked about a lot this season, but Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, man. Jalen Hurts as a fantasy quarterback, you know what I mean, has actually been killing it. So, he's rushing for a lot of yards, and not a lot of yards, sorry, a lot of touchdowns. I'm giving him some Christmas candy. We don't talk about him enough. He went crazy in the passing game last week. My quarterbacks, I'm giving those guys some cold. He gets some candy, Christmas candy.
After a slow start, after a sluggish start, Jalen Hurts is now the number 3 quarterback in fantasy per the Yahoo metrics.
Yeah.
So,
what are your thoughts, man? Who you got with Cole?
Well, I had some guys lined up who might help you, win your fantasy playoffs. Guys who are sort of peaking right now, who are, might be available if you have some type of injury, or if you're looking just to stream, right, to, make that hot play. Maybe, you're looking to hit one out of the park or something like that. Just simply because, maybe you've been, just sort of, holding on, right? Or, maybe you're, maybe the projections are like, your opponent's 30 points better than you and, you need to try something, right? Or maybe you're in a larger league with some flex spots to fill and whatnot. So, I definitely was, cold to guys like, Nico Collins. Just it wasn't his fault, but he got injured, and so he underperformed. A lot of people drafted that guy highly, so that didn't work out. Candy to Jamar Chase for being like one of the number 1 players in all of fantasy as a wide receiver, right? So he paid off for people who drafted him first and whatnot. Candy to all the running backs this year, boy, for staying healthy and just like flipping all of fantasy on its head, basically, right? And the one guy who's frustrating, but he's been really, really good, and he's been naughty and nice, and that's Trey McBride, right? And we'll talk about him again in a second, right? That guy has been a fantastic tight end all year long as far as volume. He's done everything you wanted as far as yards, but the guy's had I think it's still at 0 touchdowns for the year, right? But he's actually my he's my big start. Whoever's got McBride is going to have a big advantage in these playoffs with at the tight end position, because his schedule to finish the season out is delicious, right? Both intense matchups. Like he's you wait and see. Like, for the guy's got 0 touchdowns, I bet he finishes with 5. Just because the next two matchups are amazing for him. But Gus Edwards is proving to be a decent sort of plug and play. If you had J.K. Dobbins, for example, he had 14 attempts last week. He had all the red zone work, and he had 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, like, that's what you're looking for in fantasy this time of year, right? You need guys to be productive. You need guys who are not, it's not a, you're not looking for, you're looking for a lot of upside for sure, but you want reliable upside, right? You don't want to be taking chances this time of year. So Gus Edwards looks solid, and he's at New England next, right? So he should do, right? The other one that's looking good right now too is this guy Jalen McMillan for Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield is playing very high level right now, and anybody who's catching balls from him is benefiting. So Jalen McMillan had a really good game last week and looks poised to do so again this week. He's got Dallas, I think, this week, and then Carolina at home. So he's poised to go off, right? Another good wide receiver option for people looking to fill in spots. Romeo Doubs. He's not getting a ton of receptions, but they all count. He's been getting some good touchdowns of late, so he's a red zone target. Good touchdown target, Romeo Doubs for Green Bay. And he's going up against Seattle today, and then he's got New Orleans at home for your fantasy final. Yeah. Now, defenses are unheralded often, and a lot of people think that they're set. They're fine at defense, right? Because they've got one of the best defenses. They've got a top 5 defense. But it is remarkable. Denver, Minnesota, the Steelers, and Houston, who have all been top 5 defenses in fantasy anyways, all have terrible matchups. They all have awful matchups. So look out, man, because I've been burned by that. I remember about 10 years ago, Arizona was having a year on defense, really super reliable. And I've been kicking ass all year long, the whole business, right? In the 2-quarterback league I used to be a member of and whatnot. And I confidently played Arizona in the last week, and they had a terrible matchup, but I didn't care because, play the horses that started you, right? Not always. Right. When it comes to defenses, and they gave me negative points. I lost the game, and wow, it hurt. But so pay attention to matchups. The Chargers, for example, have New England, as I said, as a matchup. Philly has Washington this week, which is so-so, but they should probably win that game. And then they got Dallas. They got Dallas at home. So, like, if you can somehow get your hands on Philly defense, or if you have Philly defense and you're coin flipping who you're going to start, like, start Philly with confidence, I think, over these playoffs. But the Denver, Minnesota, Steelers, and Houston, all top 5 defenses, have absolutely brutal matchups. So just be careful. Just be careful. That's all I'm saying.
I'll say it like this. Being able to stream defenses, that's what I've been doing this season. Been switching them out, watching the matchups first, because you can't. Sometimes you get committed to a team or even a player and say, I'm going to ride with him. Nope. Look at the matchups, especially for the playoffs, y'all. You got to watch the matchups, because you made it to the playoffs, so that means your competition is higher. Every player counts. That's my advice to y'all. And don't go with somebody just because they're a name. Go with the matchups who they're playing.
And defenses are often neglected. Like everybody knows they want a good defense, but people don't obsess necessarily over their defenses. But pay attention. Definitely watch the matchup. Yeah.
And also pay attention to your kickers too, because I was starting Justin Tucker a while back till he started missing. I'm like, hell no, I'm gonna bench him.
Dude. Yeah. Well, that's always been a fancy, strategy of mine when it comes to kickers and defenses. It's just periodically throughout the season, like check their, how they've done over the last 4 games, how they've done overall on the season. These guys sometimes creep up the rankings. with and you barely notice them, right? Because you're not necessarily paying attention to them, but certain players, certain defenses and certain kickers are definitely more high volume than others, for sure.
I will say this, man. Something that I noticed is a massive trend now, right? And not even a trend. I just think that this has happened recently. The NFL is taking over Christmas. The
Yeah.
NFL is slowly taking over Christmas. A few years ago, right? The Christmas would have mostly basketball games. You'd watch
Yes.
maybe the Lakers, you'd watch the Golden State Warriors, watch the Boston Celtics, something like that. But I believe now the NFL, and with the guidance of Roger Goodell, has taken over Christmas because they've given us Chiefs versus Raiders, horrible game. Giants versus Philly, another horrible game. But Baltimore versus San Francisco, pretty good game. And the
Yeah.
past few holidays, they've been putting up big time teams and having matchups on Christmas. Is there a trend? Is there some history about this? And you know what time it is? The favorite time of the show, overtime with Christmas. Is there a correlation, Talk to us.
Well, of course, it all goes back to probably all goes back to Philadelphia back in the 70s, early 80s when they pelted Santa Claus with snowballs. The Philly fans did. So ever since then, I'm pretty sure Santa Claus has had the NFL on the naughty list, and so they don't get Christmas games. Of course, that's a crock. That none of that is true, except for the part that Philly did throw snowballs at Santa Claus. So they did do that. But that's Philly, like that's Philly fans, right? They're gonna do stuff like that. But anyways, no, the reality is that as the league itself, they used to always wrap up the weekend before Christmas. Sometimes wild card games would be on Christmas Eve or the following Sunday, or sometimes there were coincidences like that. But for the most part, football was a void. Even college ball too on Christmas Day. It used to drive me nuts, right? You're getting into bowl season. You're full swing, right? You've been watching bowl games since the 15th of December, and you hit Christmas Day, the one day where you really want to sit down and watch a football game. Nothing, and all they had on was the NBA. The NBA used to own Christmas Day. I don't know how they feel about getting boxed out like that, but I guess they're dealing with it because the NFL now, especially with the extra game in the schedule, like they are definitely a happening thing now over the Christmas break. And so they have decided that Christmas is no longer sort of verboten, that it works in with their plans. And Lord knows everybody loves football, right? So you can't get enough football. And so here they are taking over Christmas because it works for their schedule, for one. But also, too, I think for quite a while, sports in general kind of had a thing where they wanted to leave Christmas alone, right? It was kind of like the day where everybody had plans, people, go to church, all these types of things. But as the society has gotten more and more secular, fewer and fewer people attend church on a regular basis and whatnot. The NFL has just decided to fill that void. And we as a society have responded. We cannot get enough football.
True, that's a fact. The streaming numbers, the deals with Netflix or Amazon, I've seen the trend that's going like that completely on that side. Yeah.
People love the NFL, and why not? It's a good product. We all know why. We're biased that way, but like it's not just us. Like it really is huge business. You realize how much that new stadium in Buffalo is going to cost? Something like $2 billion. I mean, like this is
what?
Big. It is big money. Yeah. They're actually gonna have instead of putting a roof on, they're gonna have a canopy. It's heated. It's gonna like melt snow as it's sort of falling. It's high tech, man. Yeah, wow. Like SoFi, I think, was a similar type of number, right? Like so wow. Football's got to squeeze every dime out of the orange that they can, right? And every drop out of the fruit, right? It's all got to pay off, and the NFL is very good at doing it, and none of us seem to be too offended by it, right? We can't seem to get enough of it, and so Christmas Day now becomes like Thanksgiving Day, where have your big lunch after church, if you go to church, after your tree and presents and all that stuff, and come 1:00, it's kickoff time yet again.
That's a fact because look at this holiday schedule. They had a game on Halloween, which was Texans Jets.
Yeah,
Thanksgiving Day, tons of games: Bears, Lions, New York Cowboys, Dolphins, Green Bay. Black Friday, they had Raiders, Chiefs, and Christmas, like the games I said earlier, and they'll be on Netflix. So these streaming
that's an odd.
companies are noticing the market. So the market decides. We, the fans, have made this happen. The
Hmm.
market is deciding, and it's leaning all the way to the NFL. The market
Yeah.
is also deciding NBA product. I love basketball. Garbage to watch these days, unless the playoffs so bad to watch. And every damn week in the NFL, we have matchups that are borderline playoff worthy, even Super Bowl worthy. That
Yeah.
Buffalo Lions game was basically a Super Bowl preview. You know what I
Well,
mean?
see, like think about it, right? Because that is true, right? That is true. Like if you're watching the NBA in late December,
Yeah.
like the game's meaningless. It's just one of 80. It's just one of 84 games they're gonna play, right? Maybe it's a marquee matchup. Maybe it's a rivalry. That's the best you could hope for. But the NFL in Week 16 of a 17 game scheduled season, Week
Oh yeah.
16 is Christmas, and you got 3 games, probably all with playoff implications. Like that's some intense sports. So yeah,
Yes, sir. Even Santa's getting excited about it.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because Santa's an Ohio State fan. That's why.
Talking about Ohio State, we got a little time to spare. Let's talk about some CFB, brother.
Yeah. Well,
Talk about some college football, Unc.
why wild? Well, I mean, since I was a kid, people have been asking for this, right? So here they finally have it, right? Well, what they really want is a 16 team tournament, and that's coming. But for now, we've got a 12 team tournament. People said 8 was not enough, 4 wasn't enough. We finally got what we wanted as sports fans. You talked about the market, and it turns out that yeah, 4 teams probably was enough, right?
Four was
because
enough, brother.
because let me tell you, there is about 6 teams that realistically can win the Natty every year, and they're all in the SEC and the Big Ten. I'm sorry, Big 12 fans.
ACC.
Pack, whatever is left, whatever their numbers at now, fans. I'm sorry, those are the 2 divisions that are clearly head and shoulders above the rest of the league, and that's sort of what we found out. Some people were calling it the playoff round that nobody wanted, and I'm like, are you stupid? It's what we've been asking for 40 years, right? So yeah, so we may find out that 12 teams is a bit of a stretch because it went straight according to chalk, right? We haven't had any type of March Madness type of upset at all. People are looking at Arizona State now and Boise State as the only underdog teams left, right? But the way it played out this weekend, like it was entertaining just because of the spectacle it was, but those games were entirely predictable and lopsided, and the Big Ten and the SEC really looked like to be the class of college football. And I believe that it's inevitable that they're going to have to take the top 30 teams regionally throughout the league. Maybe 10 of them are from the SEC, maybe 10 of them from the Big Ten, and then another 10 or 12 from the other divisions. But you're going to have to break up the SEC and the Big Ten and have some type of regional distribution of these teams like the NFL to make that playoff work. Otherwise, it's just going to be, you might as well just play the SEC and the Big Ten. That's it.
That's literally what's happening now, brother. And I'm thinking, for me, I like an upset. You know what I mean? I like how
Me
Clemson
too.
kind of came back a little bit. You know what I mean? But
Yep.
we all knew within the first few possessions, Texas was going to win that. You know what I mean? We knew fairly
Mismatches.
quickly Ohio was going to destroy Tennessee.
Mismatches all over the place between programs. Mismatches all over the place. Like Indiana was reasonably competitive for a while, but Notre Dame just dusted them, got them out of there. Ohio State, you'd think Tennessee would have been more competitive, but Ohio State rolled.
I
I
think it
mean, like,
starts next week. That's when the real playoff starts. It's next week. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
and
It's like, damn.
Texas dispatched Clemson. You know, Dabo Sweeney's got what, 2 natties, at least 1 or 2 natties. Like Dabo Sweeney was a regular with Clemson in the national championship just a few years ago. You'd think if there was any underdog team that could handle Texas, because Texas doesn't have a lot of experience necessarily in that regard. You'd think if there was one team that could have been competitive and pulled the upset, it would have been Clemson. Wrong. Wasn't even close. There was 38-24, something like that. So, yeah, the playoffs get underway properly next week.
My thing is, right, when you have a team like Ohio State who has so much money backing it, it's literally championship or bust, brother.
Well, but that's it.
It's like,
that's it. And there's about 6 programs like that throughout the league.
Yes, exactly.
So, I mean, that's just how it goes every year. It's the same ones, and that's not necessarily different from what happened in the past, because there's always been certain college royalty, and this current state of affairs reflects that. Right? Money talks and bullshit walks, no matter where you are and no matter what era. Right? And so you're going to have to, I believe, break up these power conferences and redistribute them around if you're going to have a genuinely, truly national, regionally based college football championship at that level. Because like, again, right, like look at the SMU game against Penn State. Like Penn State's not even considered like a national powerhouse normally, right? Linebacker quality, but they're usually a bridesmaid rather than a bride every year. And they made SMU look amateur.
Right.
Like 3 special teams pick sixes, I think it was, like before halftime. It was 28-0 at halftime, and 3 of those were just simple pick sixes. SMU guy just tossed the ball to the wrong uniform.
Oh my God! And SMU had a pretty good season, man.
They did have a good season, an above-average season, right? But when you think about the Big Ten, you usually think Ohio State, and now with Oregon in there, right? They still get overshadowed. But it just goes to show you systemically how strong the Big Ten is, just in general. To be the second place team in the Big Ten means that you could walk over any other program in the country. It looks like.
And you know what? Penn State's had a pretty good season too, but they're not the top of the top, and they spanked the hell out of a conference winner in SMU, and you're like,
all those arguments for these Cinderella teams all look like bunk. Like at this point, we're starting to say, man, we shouldn't have left Alabama out. Even with 3 losses, Alabama would have been more competitive than Clemson.
Not even a joke. Alabama would have put on a great fight versus Penn State. Would have put on even a better fight versus Ohio. And I think they would have pushed Texas. They would have pushed Texas. They would have made it somewhat competitive, not only because of the coaching, but I think they have just better players, man. And
they do.
Talk about that last 2 things. NIL, brother. NIL. I want to get your thoughts before I let you know mine. What do you think? Is it good, bad, making the college game better, or no?
Well, I ultimately I think it's very good for the players. I'm not sure because you're talking about imaging and licensing for individual players, correct? With the NIL. So I keep hearing like NIL money being connected to the strength of the program, but I'm not sure how that works. I mean, it's because what you're basically doing is you're giving finally these college players the right to earn money for themselves. So the well-being of the player and his sudden affluence, his newfound wealth from licensing his image and likeness and whatnot. I'm not sure how that necessarily makes the program stronger, but I certainly know that it now avoids all those sleazy payoffs and things like that players used to have to do to try to put the whole body and soul together with some money. So instead of having donors give them, $50,000 in a brown paper bag or something like that, a new car or something like that, like none of that type of stuff is necessary anymore. And I think that's a good thing for the integrity of the sport. And I believe that these guys, I mean, we've been saying it for years that it's such hypocrisy in sports like football at the college level everybody knows that it's just a minor league sports franchise and system. Like these guys are pros, right?
Mhm.
After you leave high school, people start talking about your career. Like this is your
Right.
career at this point, right? You're 18, you're out of the house, you're playing for a multi-million-dollar program in college football. You are a pro, and you should not
Yeah.
have. You should not. I mean, they give you room and board and a college education and primo facilities and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, you still don't have two dimes to rub together because you can't
True.
even have a damn job. So,
Right.
because if they allow them to work at McDonald's, then why can't they work for the booster washing his car on weekends, and he just happens to make
Right.
$100,000 a year for doing that, right? So you have to draw the line, right? But now that they've done that, where they've got rid of the hypocrisy about it, like I just think it's fantastic for the players. They should be able to get, like, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that computer games, the gaming environment, you're using these college players, in a Madden type game or something, and they're not making any money off that. Are you
That
kidding me?
wasn't cool. I didn't like that. I didn't like that either.
Like that's not cool at all. That's theft, right?
That's wrong. It's wrong.
So yeah, I'm all in favor. I've always been in favor of those players getting stipends and whatnot, because it's, come on, man, these guys are producing just billions of dollars in TV revenue every year, and it's all going to the schools.
I'm gonna give you a counter argument, Unc, that I think I agree with you, but I have a counter argument to this.
Sure.
Because look at this. You have a situation in the NIL where there's players who are getting so much money from NIL, right? And they're going through similar programs. So what happens, I think, is this leans back to what we talked about, where the top programs have so much NIL money that they almost buy out all the good players. And that's why we have such beatdowns in college football.
So how does the program tap into the players' NIL money? How does that work?
So almost all programs now have an NIL division, right? Almost every football program has an NIL division, which manages name, image, and likeness for its players, right?
Oh, so they just
focus. You want your player to focus on playing ball, and we'll handle your money.
And they take a fee, and no doubt they take a fee.
And right. Of course, they take a fee. But let's say you have a healthy alumni like Texas does. Let's say you have a wealthy alumni like Ohio State does, or Georgia, or Oregon, where you have literally the owner of Nike who donates a lot of money to Oregon. Then you can build a super huge program with all the best player and make it free agency. So there's a manipulation happening in that whole system. That's, yes, the players are getting paid, which is great, but they're having a power imbalance where a team like Oregon can pick up a lot of great players.
I see.
A lot of programs can get great quarterbacks. Texas gets Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning. Yeah. They're going towards the money, and that's why I think it can get very insidious or like crazy.
Yeah.
Where a guy like Nick Saban says, bruh, this is Wild Wild West, I'm out. Yeah,
so like Saban. Yeah, really there's something in this. There's something in this new environment that's revolutionary, because Saban has said, no mas, that's it. I'm done, right? This is just one step too far for me, just comfortably, right? So it's a new environment. So I guess we're all sort of getting used to it. We were talking about Belichick last week with North Carolina. That seems to be working, right? Like there are a lot of commitments are landing there. Like he's got two. He's going to have a quarterback controversy to start the season next year. He's going to have a quarterback controversy to start his season next year in North Carolina. Yeah. He's got two blue chip recruits. One that stayed, that had committed and decided to recommit basically once he got there. Yes, once Belichick got there, and then another blue chip quarterback just said, like, I'm going there, right? He's my guy. So so there might be some changes to the landscape, but as usual, just like in any environment, right? The rich tend to re-emphasize their riches, right? The rich get richer, right? I mean, they use their money to buy more money, right? So.
And I say it like this, brother. That's why I was a little optimistic about Bill being in North Carolina, because it's a money game now. The college game has turned basically like the pros. It's like free
Yeah.
agency now. It's like the
And
Wild
that's
West.
the way we're going. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely really curious to see how Belichick. I was kind of hard on him last week, but I am very curious to see how Belichick plays out, because this does seem to be
Yeah.
Belichick's position there seems to be a result of this new system. That
Oh,
something about it appeals to him, that he thinks he can make it work. And other people seem to be talking the same way. At the same time, we're getting
100%.
this college football playoff, and it's showing us that there's going to need to be most likely a realignment in general. So
Oh,
yeah, like college
absolutely.
football is a pro football league, just not in name.
Absolutely. That's I think he looked at Coach Prime and what he was able to do. He looked at things that Lincoln Riley has done. And
Yes.
I promise you, if this was like 3 years ago, Belichick would not be in college. Or even 2 years ago. Hell no. It's
Yeah.
because of all the changes that happened in the system that made it almost like literally a semi-pro league. That's what
Yeah.
college football is now. You know what I mean? Well, it
Yes,
is
it
pro,
is.
but it's semi-pro. I want to wrap this all up with this, Unc. Who
What's
you
that
got
now?
winning it all, brother? Who do you have winning it all? I'm talking about the championship.
Oh, in
Who's
college?
your pick? College football. Who's going to take it all?
If it isn't Oregon, it'll be Georgia. I think it's going to be Oregon, Georgia in the final. And
Nice.
I have an SEC bias that way. I am kind of biased towards the SEC. I've always loved them. That's where I first really started to see like the transition of speed on defense and all that type of thing. So I do have a bias towards the SEC. So I believe in Georgia. I believe like if Georgia played the number one hardest schedule in all of football. So it doesn't surprise me that they had a couple of losses. They bounced back. There's questions about their quarterback, but we'll see about that. But it appears to be Oregon's natty to lose.
Yeah, they're the only undefeated team out there, and they
Yep.
kind of proved it throughout the season. Oregon has looked great. Dylan Gabriel's looking amazing. The whole
Yes.
program looks great, and
Yep.
even their coach Dan Lanning, great coach. You know what I mean?
They
But
look
also,
like a
it looks
pro
they've been
program.
discipled. Yeah, and another thing, they get a lot of NIL money.
Yeah.
Literally,
Yeah.
the owner of Nike gives them a
But
lot.
I believe in Kirby Smart. I believe in the Georgia program, and I believe in the SEC. So I think I find it hard to think of a final without at least one of the SEC teams in there, right? Because, like I said, these are programs, they are institutions, they are systems, and they've been at it for a while. And Kirby Smart comes from the Saban coaching tree, right? Like that's a quality
Yes,
program
sir.
at Georgia. So we'll see what happens.
We'll definitely see what happens. For the record, I got the Texas Longhorns. But I could be right. I like what the Longhorns have having in there as a system. And Oregon, it's their championship to lose. They've been playing
Yep.
fantastic all season. Man, I like that college football talk. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Uncle
All
Q,
right.
happy holidays, people. Happy holidays, people. We will link up
Happy
with
holidays to everybody. Yes, definitely a heartfelt happy holidays to all the people who support us on this channel. I hope you and your family have a safe and pleasant holiday, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next week.
next week, people. Shout out to Kareem. Shout out to our boy Roberto in the chat. Appreciate y'all for rocking with us. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Celebrate with your family and friends and enjoy
Yes,
this base.
one love, baby.
Yes, sir.